Hello, welcome to TrueHoop with me, Jarod, Hector, and Henry Abbott. How are you, sir?
Good, man. How are you?
I am doing great. We are limping towards the end of the regular season. No, not limping. It's good. We got like 5-6 games left for most teams. Like Henry, as we talked about with David last couple of weeks, besides Boston, nobody else is sure of. And people who obviously aren't making the playoffs or playing, no one knows where they're going to be seated right now. Crazy.
It's kind of fun. Yeah, it's fun. The real victims are like the video scouts.
Oh, sucks
like
to be them.
Working for the Clippers right now. That guy has to have like 8 times the regular workload. Just like have everything ready, prepare everything. It's like, come on, can we just
prepare
do this
for
later?
every team? But here's the funny thing about that, though, Henry, and we'll talk about this a little bit more. Like you would think that would mean fans of basketball are excited because it's like, oh my god, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't feel like anybody's very excited right now. It's not super exciting.
It's not exactly like that David versus Goliath moment yet, right? It's more just kind of like, Clippers or Suns or whatever. It's just like it's a big stew, right? It's
Yeah.
But it'll get exciting. It'll get real. It'll get good once we get LeBron and Steph out of the way.
We're gonna get to those two in a minute. The NBA offices are listening to this right now. They're like, "Oh God, please don't say that." We need LeBron and Steph. So a bit of poor news for the Knicks. Julius Randle is going to have season-ending surgery on his shoulder that was separated. He had opted for rehab to get himself back together to play. Clearly, the rehab not gone well. ESPN just reported that he's going to opt for season-ending surgery. And look, the Knicks have done well to hold on to where they are, top 6 seed, without him. But David and I thought this could be a potential conference finals team if things broke right for them. No pun intended. Things not broken right for them now. And so I just, look, Brunson's great, but there's only so much he's going to be able to do. And even with Mitchell Robinson back, I think it's going to be tough for the Knicks to do a whole lot this postseason.
Yeah, to me, this Thibodeau is a great. He's like he's very good, technically sound coach, and he's totally OCD perfected. Like his approach to the game, he's a computer, right? And this was the Chicago team. That Chicago team was so extraordinary, right? That Derek Rose, Joakim Noah, Lowell Deng, and that was all credit to him. But they also broke down this exact way, right? Like nobody had a good long career out of that. And it feels a little like I never want to be part of predicting anyone getting hurt, but watch out, Jalen Brunson. Be careful. I really feel like this is how this goes when your coach literally doesn't believe in human frailty, his own or anyone else's. It's good for a while, right? This is good for a while, and then at some point you're fucked.
Look, we saw the evidence. How good was young prime MVP Derrick Rose?
Just ridiculous,
right? We were like, this guy's gonna beat LeBron, and that. This was the thing, and then
people started saying, is he going too hard? He played I don't know if ever any other player has frightened me for his own safety with how he played. It was there was a still shot. I think there's a true post somewhere in the archives where I wrote about this when he was in his prime, but there was a still shot of him bringing the ball back for a crazy tomahawk dunk, and as the angle that he bent backwards, when you just see someone that high off the ground, just like that, I was like, oh my gosh, he's just, the forces involved in his movements were just absurd.
I'm with you.
And everyone's like, oh, caution, and Thibodeau's like, caution? He mocked people for saying that, right? And it's like, that dude didn't last.
Well, clearly. Look, and as someone who enjoys watching the Memphis Grizzlies, John Morant makes me feel that way. Right?
A little bit.
Oh God, no, don't it's exciting. So I'm like, ooh, it's oh shit, you might land weird. It's just...
There's a guy I interviewed for the book and I basically asked who's the sort of freest moving person in the NBA, and he's like, oh, Jolly. He just floats around, does whatever he wants. He just he freedom of movement I thought of as hip range of motion. But he thought of it as that,
soaring
but also
through the air.
Your team permits you to do what you want to do. Right. Yeah. You're unconstricted in any way. And I was like, that guy is the one.
And Henry, that's an interesting thing you bring up, because the team lets you do what you want to do, but that's also his superpower, right?
Yeah.
So how do you balance? I can't take away your superpower, but I have to temper it a little bit.
You can't. I don't think it's really possible. It's very hard.
No.
He might learn about his body a little bit, right? He might learn oh, my foot here is safe and over here is dangerous, right? But I don't think as a coach you're going to get into that. these are these split second micro decisions, right? Like
you're just going.
You're not gonna have like, oh, Taylor says like that's not gonna like that's not how his brain's gonna work. You know what I mean? Like.
Or chapter 8 in Henry's book said I have a 16% chance of you're not thinking about that.
No. And you shouldn't. It's just not how it works. Those are like just life or death decisions in the heat of the moment, like you just gotta go.
And it's like what makes us love the sport, right? But it's also as the more we get into this and do what you do, it makes us fear for these athletes in every sport that's just breaking, because I'm like, you're gonna break. Like,
well, in a little bit, we're going to have the playoffs soon, and we're going to be missing a lot of good players, right? Because of injury, and everyone's going to say, oh, it's inevitable, but we're not missing NCAA players, I don't think, in the Final Four.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're all there.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that? It's like, well, I don't know, but they played 30 games instead of 82. Like, could be a factor, It
might be a reason.
Yeah. I would at least keep an open mind,
Well, speaking of injury, Joel Embiid returned from injury a couple nights ago. Looked rusty, clearly. One thing he's clearly still, Henry, very large, still a large human being, still extremely skilled, still very good at drawing fouls. Look, those three things still very helpful in helping you win games. He had a huge steal or block at the end of the game, helped the 76ers win it. Look, he's not in shape, obviously, because if you have a meniscus, you can't do all the basketball shape stuff. All of Philly's potential is going to all hinge on his ability to get himself back to where he was when he was literally, as David was saying, I think David we called him the MVP in like December or January. Like, it's over because he was just destroying everyone and not just by counting stats, by advanced metrics, he was destroying everybody. I mean, the likelihood probably of he getting back to that level, highly unlikely, but I don't know, things happen.
Well, so if I remember correctly, you and I were ringleaders in our little group chat of being a little pessimistic about the Sixers' chances when he got hurt, right? And then they made some trades at the trade deadline. And I felt it was a little bit like, hey, it's not out of the question when he got injured that they would miss the play-in entirely, right? It was definitely possible.
For sure.
And then maybe Daryl will get fired, right? It was like and to their credit, they kept the ship more or less on course. And now
above 500, they're in the play-in, yep.
Yeah. You'd hate to see them anytime soon in the playoffs.
Correct.
I don't think I still don't think I think they're like very, very low odds to win the championship.
I agree.
Just because of Embiid's health even before all this. Right?
Yes. Right.
But yeah, it's a great recovery if you're a Sixers fan, right?
Yeah.
Your season was lost and now it is found. So that's kind of fun.
I love it. Look at that. Nice lost and found metaphor in there. I like that.
Thank you.
That's and if you're going to beat them and catch them, you're going to want to catch them now, right? Because if by some strange chance they win the play-in and they get in and they win, later it goes, that means he's getting himself back together, right? So you're probably, let's get these guys out of here early.
But it's like the worst training program of all time, though, right?
Yes.
Like, he's also getting more beat up he still falls down all the time, right? Like
always.
I don't know. You and I have both seen how he moves. Everyone listening to this has seen how he moves when he's just absolutely exhausted, right? And that kind of guy who's just like looks like he woke up from a nap, he's just kind of like, oh, I have to go down here and do this. Oh my god, like he looks like 100 years old at times, right? Like, and
he does.
You want to face that guy if you can too. And like you might get that guy in the conference finals, right? You might.
The old guy, yes. Who's like, I just woke up from a nap. I'm 100 years old.
He's just yelling at the kids for being too loud, because he wanted to sleep.
I mean, listen, the whole NBA probably needs a nap right now. If we're being honest about it.
He goes hard. Actually, he's a little bit like Thibodeau. I think that most of them, their superpower is like just like against all odds. Like I bet it hurts like crazy to be Embiid. I bet he plays through insane pain. Right?
Well, Giannis too, right? It's Giannis' superpower. I go hard 24. It's like, well, I mean,
and it's just weird. 97% would be better. Like it's just a little weird, but like you would help the Sixers more at 97% of effort. Like,
and you are among the belief that we can train these athletes to go 97% and not 100.
I mean, they do in every other sport. Like I mean, like the 100 really burns you when you play 5 games a week, right? Like it's a much better approach if you play football and you play on Sunday, right? Like then 100%, and they play, I think that like you play like 13, 14 minutes is the average like active time of a football game. Like just go. Or you have like a 5-second play and then 50 seconds off. I saw on one thing, like just all out, right? That mentality in the NBA just is, we see it all the time. If you go super hard in the regular season, like Steve Nash in Phoenix, like you fizzle in the playoffs because you were stupid to go so hard all year. Like Jimmy Butler's right. Like
he's listening. He really is, man.
Yeah. This is a sport that's designed to punish people who go hard all the time because we just made the schedule stupid. So pick your poison. Would you rather be good in the playoffs or the regular season?
But then it's like, but if I'm not good, we won't even make the playoffs if I'm not good in the regular season, right?
That's a worry. Yeah.
This is your worry. Like it's tough, man.
Yeah. It is.
Vinny Goodwill of Yahoo Sports had an article out a couple weeks ago, Henry, about just sort of overall just some things in the NBA. Unintended consequences, I believe, was a term that Vinny used in the piece. And, I mean, I'd argue when it relates to certain things like taking gambling money, maybe not unintended is the wrong word. Maybe I could have possibly foreseen something like this happening. And it's not about, right? It's just like, we've already seen stuff happen when gambling was illegal. So why would you think that making it legal meant that it would not happen? I mean, I don't know. That's how I thought about it. So there's the Jonte Porter thing, which, I don't know if you saw this in Louisiana. They banned prop bets for college players. Doubt that'll happen to pro players, but either way, you're starting to see little rumples of we got to kind of dial this back. But like everything we do in this country, Henry, like the horse is already down the street, out the barn, and now we're trying to like reel it back. And I'm like, I think it's too late at this point. We are where we are. I don't really know what we're going to do.
Well, and Adam Silver's a lawyer who works for gambling investors, right? A tremendous percentage of NBA billionaires have skin in this game, right? So, this Jonte Porter is a very, very small player in this much bigger sea of money, right? Like floating he's a little boat. And they're like, oh, well, if we make an example of this one, it'll make the ocean seem safer or something. My analogy could quickly get out of hand.
I know exactly what you mean.
But yeah, it's what's not going to happen under any circumstances is that Adam Silver is going to say gambling's bad for America.
Correct.
Right? Like if it is bad for America, other people will have to say it, but he won't because he is a lawyer who represents the gambling industry at this point, right?
Yes.
Like quite literally, like that relationship exists that way, right? And so, he has bosses, he has 30 of them, and we could look it up. We could do a bunch of figuring who owns what, but like there's a lot of gambling in that portfolio. So, he ran an event. Adam Silver personally did the Tech Summit. He was like before he was commissioner, it was kind of like his baby. And, that's where I first learned gambling was coming to the NBA in a big way. And the people who announced it were like James Dolan and Jeannie Buss, right? And like, because they were like, oh, this is great. Oh, just write your checks. That's amazing. Like that's where we are. That's what's driving here, right? As that mentality. So, okay, we're just going to get all the crap. If it ruins, if you have an uncle who gambles too much and loses his home, like that's just going to happen, right? Like the NBA is not going to stop the bus for that, right? No. So I don't begrudge the NBA being part of this business, but somebody's going to have to be the adult, like it's not going to be them, right? Like somebody's going to have to make sure that everybody's uncles don't lose their homes,
Yeah, when you made your ocean analogy to make the ocean safer, maybe you think of something I put in the group chat, and this is something that people used to say about the NCAA all the time. When Kentucky gets caught cheating, Western Kentucky goes on probation for 5 years,
totally,
right?
Totally.
But this is the idea. Oh, we're gonna no, the big blue blood, whatever. Okay, fine. We're gonna make an example out of you guys. You're gonna get right like SMU in college football. Certain schools who don't have a business being that good in a particular sport will punish them badly, but not the big powerhouses. And it's kind of similar in this way. And
the regulators need to look like regulators, right?
Yes.
So like the police need to bust somebody so the badge means something, right? Like but that's to your point, like they have a little bit of doping testing here and there now and again in the NBA, and they get people like Samaki Walker,
yeah. Because Samaki, that's
To be honest, he didn't even. I don't even think he felt. He got pulled over with steroids in the car. I think is right. I don't even think they got him in my car.
But just like it was in his car.
Yeah, he got it. I'm pretty sure he got pulled over driving with it, and he was just like, "I play in Lebanon. It's legal there."
I mean,
but now his son's in the NBA, so I feel like it matters a little more now. Yeah.
Thank you for making me feel super old right now that Samaki Walker's son is in the NBA. I mean, this is where we are right now. Wow.
Yeah.
But all of this is relevant, Henry, because the NBA is Adam's biggest task right now is securing the next broadcast media rights deal. And gambling scandals, none of that is good for going to whoever and saying, I want $12 billion. Like that, right? That's not good. So we have to kind of, everything's fine, right? It's like, don't look over here. We're all good. And I wonder, right, like how much of this is in addition to the fact that the product on the court, we've known for years, the TV ratings are declining massively, right? So if you're the head of Netflix or whatever, now Netflix will be a different story because they might say, ooh, in-season tournament, that's hot. We'll buy that from you, but I'm not buying 40 regular season games. What do I want that for? It's going to be tough to convince these guys, right? To say, yeah, here's a check for $12 billion. No problem, Adam. How does he do that? How does he convince them to write him a check for $12 billion?
Yeah, I don't know. But I think maybe sometimes we're naive, and I'm guilty of this too, of like thinking of business as business, right? Of thinking like people make big deals because they want the as it would have been taught in business school, business to do better, right? Like the current deals are money losers. Like didn't work for Disney, didn't work for Turner, but they're all going to bid again. So what's that about? Well, I don't know, but I guess if you run ESPN and lose the NBA, then maybe you lose your job. So it's not good for the shareholders. It's not good for the bottom line, or it'll take a massive turn of events, right?
Right.
But maybe it's good for some backroom thing that's hard to divine from afar, right? But they, hey, these are lost leaders, right? So they're bigger loser leaders. Does that make them worse or better deals? I don't know.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of lawyers involved who make a lot of money. It's a win for them, right? There are some people with careers who will move ahead because this is a win for them. There's it's a win for a lot of people. It's probably not a win for whoever ends up ultimately, ESPN lost so much money on these deals that there was talk of Disney carving off ESPN and letting it go bankrupt so it could have negotiate down these rights, right? That could still happen.
Sure.
So I don't think there's a rational reason based on the numbers and the income, and I don't read Ethan Strauss anymore, but I gather he's been writing about this where it's the business of, there's kind of two ways to make money in media, right? You can have a small audience that pays cash, and then you have to just level up the amount they pay, or you have to have just an enormous audience like Super Bowl Sunday, where everyone and their mom is watching, and then it's ad supported and it's free, right?
And the NBA doesn't have that.
They're falling in the middle.
Yeah,
they fall in the middle of those two, right? They don't League Pass isn't going to save us. Maybe the theory is if you run, some whatever part of Amazon would bid on this, or Apple, maybe you can inch up your market share in the streaming wars a little bit with this thing, and in a way that actually does make the bigger product a little bit better, shinier. So I guess that's the bet. But it's not going to be about the actual ROI. It's just not. It's not. Someone's going to bid an amount where they're going to lose, and that they're going to be the winning bidders.
But to your point, if I'm the person at the lever, at the head of Turner or Time Warner, whatever, I can't be the person at the helm that loses the NBA. So fine, because that will look bad for me, and I will get fired. Even though dollar wise, but I'm actually doing the smart thing. We're not investing in it's going to lose us money. This is way better.
I mean, it's it's just people. What's a good analogy? So Arturis takes over the Bulls and spends all the money, which ultimately doomed them and made them absolutely they're an expensive pile of crap now, and now they have to do the expensive rebuild, right? That'll take the years and the patience, right? But he did the win now thing, and everyone's oh, those articles when he was new, he was a genius, right? Then compare with the process or whatever, right? Where they the Sixers were in the process of actually getting good, and everyone's oh, Hinkie's the worst, right? It's a short term, long term thing, right? we tend to celebrate leaders who deliver short-term results, whereas the ones who deliver a lot of the fixes that we need, like for climate change or whatever, right?
Like, we don't want that.
The only approach that works is long-term, right? So it's like, this will happen again with this streaming wars thing for sure.
Oh, we're going to get into short-term, long-term with some billionaire owners in a little bit. It's going to be good. So the NBA, look, I know they're happy. We talked about, well, you said, as soon as we get LeBron and Steph out of here, I know that they're happy in the NBA offices that they're going to get probably a LeBron Steph again, but this time on the play-in. But Henry, I argue that's not great because you are continuing to hang your coattails on the popularity of these two popular human beings who, as we talked about on our pre-call this morning, they're old now, man. Like, and we're at the end. The two of them winning championships is long gone, in my opinion, unless they become like, they go somewhere else on another team and like, right? But in their current states, probably not likely. And the NBA signified forever that they are the only two that matter. Well, you have a league full of 400 and whatever other people who, maybe not that many that matter, but who are also awesome. And you're doing a bad job of promoting them, right? So what's going on here? Why are we still hanging on to the LeBron Steph? And why is it so difficult for this league to move forward with all the awesome young superstars that we have?
Yeah, I don't think the league knows how to promote them. Like, they don't know how to make Luka an international superstar, right? Like, they don't know how to make Giannis a big star. You're listening to this podcast, so you're probably a basketball dork, right? Like, we love you, but you have to realize how different the real world is from us, right? Like my mom knows who Michael Jordan is. She knows who LeBron is. She knows who Steph is. She does not know who Giannis is, right? And if you look in the data, it's a giant difference. Actually, not a bad way to approximate it. Just look in Google Trends. Just look at the usage of these words. Like, all the words that are not LeBron and Steph are smaller than the NBA, right? Like, they're brands that are subservient to the NBA. And so it's a miracle that LeBron and Steph are still doing what they're doing. Absolutely incredible, way on borrowed time. I forget the math, but I did a story a while ago about what percentage of NBA players are good after the age of 31. I think it's 1%. Like, most of them are retired before 31, right?
Yeah.
So the fact that they're good at
34 and 35.
LeBron's 114 now, right?
Yes.
Unbelievable. It's all we're all in the bonus period, right? It's just
right.
this is free basketball. Yeah, it's amazing. It's a miracle. The only weird thing is that there's so many incredible young players. Kevin Durant's point about peak basketball was a good one, right? Like, these are just miracle workers on the court, and really none of them have connected with the public outside of hardcore basketball fans. And so that's going to be a very severe business mystery for years to come.
So you've been around this for a long time. So I have to ask you, what is it about LeBron and Steph that resonates that, for instance, doesn't resonate with Kevin Durant? Because if I look at it, LeBron and Steph to me are among the more calculated, and LeBron especially, and Steph vanilla. They say nothing. Nothing they do is interesting or exciting publicly at all. What they do on the floor, amazing. Conversely, Kevin Durant, also amazing on the floor, but does all kinds of interesting things off the floor. And I don't understand it's like this is a person who's very real. He's got burner accounts and yells at people on Twitter and does all normal things I don't do that, but that normal people do, right? Whereas those two seem to me so locked away and I don't know nothing about what these people do in their life. What's the disconnect there?
Oh gosh, how much time do we have?
We have a million hours. Go.
So most people just don't become most musicians don't become rock stars, right? Whatever, it's not normal that you would navigate the top of the mountain, right? LeBron did a bunch of weird stuff, right? He arrived to his hometown and landed as already one of the best players in the NBA out of high school. All of that is like an alien. This is unheard of stuff, right?
Highly unlikely.
Then he became super beloved, and then he caught the world's attention by just shattering all of that by basically it's like he was married to Ohio and then he cheated on his wife with Florida, right? And
I love this analogy.
And the whole place was just you are so bad. This is the worst, right? And emerging over here on the corner was Kobe's the better version of this, right? He was the rival who was better, and so it was this is the worst. This one's the best over here. Big battle for years. This was the earliest TrueHoop was just the comments were all just bad, good, evil, it's very Shakespearean, right? Then he patched it up with the ex-wife.
Yeah, he went back, met another kid.
Fixed the narrative.
A whole big family.
Won a championship. Like, it was like, you know, all just like, this was the 7th unlikely thing in his career, right?
Yeah.
Then he went to Kobe's hometown and became a movie producer. Like, all of this was like, no one's done any of these things. All of it was like unbelievable. So like, he forced the whole world to just like look at me. And then I really think it blew his mind when they hated him. I think it really did upset him, but he was like, he's kind of been patching it up ever since. And like, you know, he's kind of like, he's built this he got everyone's attention, he broke their hearts, and then he patched it up. And like, wow, that was effective. And a bunch of other stuff happened. You know, his whole posse became power players in the world, right? Like,
I mean, Rich Paul is maybe the NBA's most powerful agent right now, possibly.
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
and he's still dating Adele, right?
I mean, like, according to some reports, might be married to Adele for all we know.
Oh, I didn't know about that. Sneaky Adele marriage. Oh, but that's a big. I mean, if we're talking
about crossover,
reaching people outside basketball, like Adele has way more outside basketball fans than Kevin Durant does.
Correct.
Right? Like, and he's kind of endorsing LeBron, right? Steph, on the other hand, Steph's a whole different thing, right? Steph makes every 4th grader feel like they're a superstar, right? Like, you see him and you see like
that's me.
Go on the playground, like he's a little shrimpo guy, you know, like, and he waxes everybody. Like, that's everybody's favorite thing, you know. Like, unless you have him be 7'2", you know,
you're like, that's not my favorite thing.
Yeah, he's a dream maker. Steph is a total like he gives your dreams wings, right?
I like it.
Durant is different. Durant's like, he's just a worker, which I mean, if you're his coach, you love that.
Right.
But as a guy to make a movie about, it's like, well, he went to work again. You know? like, and then he's on Twitter a little bit, you know, like he didn't capture the nation's heart in any way, right? He's like, he played with Steph, and then he was exciting for a hot second, but then he left. Like, and now it's like, it wasn't as good. It wasn't him. He was great, but he wasn't like Steph was better, you know?
Interesting.
Anyway, that's my take. I could keep going if you want, but
no. But I think it's all fascinating though, right? Because it's like, how do you know who's going to be what, right? And who's going to resonate, not with us, the dorks and the sickos who watch League Pass till 2 a.m. watching. We don't matter in this larger. Sorry to tell you, folks, we don't. Like, when the NBA is thinking about what they want to do,
we're baked in already.
Exactly,
yeah,
we're already counting our numbers. They want to know who is going to tune in on a Tuesday night because they have a million other options. Is going to pick, yes, I'm going to watch NBA tonight, and there has to be some factor.
Okay, and here's the thing: like, they're of a Michael Jordan mindset. So Michael Jordan was, I'm going to speak crudely here, like kind of an asshole. Like, he was like the kind of guy that if the media had really great access,
right,
people would like him less.
Yes, correct.
So they kept the media and everyone at arm's length, and they made him wear a tie, and they kind of presented a construction, a public version of Michael Jordan, and it could not have worked better. It was the most. Everyone who works at the NBA has never touched anything as successful as how they managed that guy. Right? That's the playbook. Like, is a Disneyfied, falsified version of himself, right? And the media never really sees the real Michael, except for like little glimpses here and there, right?
Right. We'll get into that in a bit too.
So, yeah, that's coming up. So then this podcast is going to be 9 hours.
That's going to be great.
But it was going to be long before our opening 5 minutes turned into half an hour. But okay. But then that playbook works if you have an excess of fame. And you just need to tailor the image of it, right? Which was the Michael thing. Now we have, nobody knows who Luka is.
Right. We have to make him famous.
You know what? It would be this is where the Drive to Survive Netflix show is interesting. Like, they put cameras everywhere. Like, they're not everywhere, but close, right? You know, like, you see people fighting with their managers and with their teammates, and you see, you know, I'm leaving this team for that team, and it's all, those negotiations are on camera, right? That makes someone who isn't, I mean, Nico Hulkenberg is famous to F1 fans, but I didn't know who it was before watching that show, right?
Right.
But like, now I actually care about that guy because I'm in a soap opera with him, right? Or I had this like meeting with the WNBA years ago, and I was like, you guys know who's recovering from drug addiction, and you're rooting extra hard for that person. Like if it's Michael Jordan, I can see why you wouldn't want us to know, but like if it's someone we've never heard of their name before, like you do want us to know. Yeah. Like, I mean, with their permission, obviously. Like, but Well, like, I think the NBAs keep the media out of the locker room thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the league would be more popular if we saw that Luka was like, I'm going to make up some terrible thing. But he was like, drinking little bottles of Beefeater gin at halftime.
Yeah.
That's a joke, everybody.
Right,
of course, he wouldn't do that. But
right, yes.
But like
Access,
these little human frailties would make an unfamous person more famous, right? And so they have this thing where it's like, oh, he's just. I've talked to agents for like very middling NBA players who are basically like giving me the Michael Jordan treatment. I'm like, bro, you guys aren't selling any cars. Like, I've seen the data. Like,
right.
Like, you don't need to keep me at arm's length. Like, you would prefer it if I sniffed around more, right? Like, it'd be better for you to like open the door a little more, But anyway.
No, but this is fascinating though, like, because this is the league, and the league, Henry, like this model, it's like we've always done it this way, so that's how we're going to keep doing it. But at your point, the Michael Jordan model worked in an era where he was super famous, and again, to your point, tailoring, right? We didn't have social and always 8 billion. Now that's kind of flattened all that out, right? Like, I've heard about this person since they were 15 years old. Like, so what? Like, give me something new. And I just feel like, and with the league in terms of marketing these guys, and I think they need to talk about more people. You have some trouble right now because Christmas is a huge thing it was a huge thing for the NBA. The NFL has decided that it doesn't matter what day Christmas falls on. We're playing games every Christmas day. Henry, you know what the average NFL Christmas Day game does? Like, versus one NFL Christmas game. It doesn't matter which one. Crushes.
It's like that thing. It's like if Shaquille O'Neal sits on you. It's like, oh, bummer, I lost the fight. Pretty much.
One game crushes the entire NBA Christmas slate combined.
Yeah.
It's over. But that's a day that matters, because I know when the NBA goes to talk about, hey, we got Christmas Day, what are they going to say now? You're going to get even less of the market share now because no one's watching. I know we talked about it earlier. That doesn't matter. They're going to make the bet anyway. And I was looking at this Premier League, which I know you're a fan of. Arsenal, Man City. Shout out to your Gunners, by the way. Tying Man City. That did 2.1 million views in the U.S. on Sunday on Easter. That's better than just about any NBA playoff game. Like, yeah, I think we got some problems with this product. We got some problems.
Yeah, I mean, I suspect they'll get their deal, but we have no idea what the world looks like if the players get a share of BRI, and if BRI, at some point, if the market is heard and BRI takes a real hit, like, what does who would be the player? Like, like a Brandon Miller with a 30% pay cut.
Okay.
Where does he go?
Yeah.
Would he leave? Yeah. We had a couple guys go to Europe in the lockout, right? But like, at some point, someone's going to invest in a real rival league. It's not a worry for today, but okay. A little bit of a thing that's happening too is the siloing of sports fans means, like, if the NBA is going to have a narrow audience that pays, then it's transferable. Like, then you could maybe. So like if what we're doing is everyone watches All Day Christmas Day and we're all on NBC together, like, that's how LeBron and big ABC games is why the nation knows the names LeBron and Steph, right? These big audiences. If that's not really what we're doing, this like ad supported big tent approach, and if it's a narrower thing, then like somebody could own the exclusive country club and just take it somewhere else.
Yeah.
Right. Like LeBron and friends could cut their own deal with Netflix and leave the NBA and Amazon or whatever it is. Right.
Correct.
So I don't see that happening right now, but like, if it's the more it's something that doesn't need stadiums, the more the league isn't essential.
Yeah. And we made the case during the pandemic that the league kind of isn't essential, right? These guys have enough money. The top guys can just make deals with sound stages everywhere, and we can get rid of all this.
If you can do it at Disney, then you don't need these creepy guys who got tax breaks to build these buildings all over the world.
100%. And that's the other thing. So the NBA as a business, Adam is tasked with growing, and not by growing in terms of more fans, growing the bottom line. That's what his job is. But does the NBA have to? I mean, why can't it just settle out as I don't even know what they make right now. I'm throwing a number out there, as a $20 billion business. Why isn't that good enough? And just keep it there.
I mean, I guess because my guess is the real answer is there's probably a handful of current NBA billionaires who are just feeling the pinch so hard that they just yell at him every day, right? And they're just like, if you can't do this, we'll find someone who will, right? Yeah. And maybe they get to 17 votes and they can kick him out, right? So there's always going to be someone who's like, fix it, make it better. Give me what I need
more.
Yeah.
Guys, we'll be back after this brief commercial break. Listen, it's heavy, man. That's a lot of stuff. All right. Well, since we're on the topic of billionaires, Henry, let's just go there. Lots happening in the billionaire world right now of the NBA. 2 billionaire owners who can't stand each other. They hate each other's guts. We'll get to them in a minute, but
or we could do it first. You want?
Let's start
Maybe
with them.
It makes sense.
Yeah, let's maybe start with them. Okay, so Mat Ishbia, new owner of the Phoenix Suns, the head of United Wholesale Mortgage. He and Dan Gilbert, owner of the Cleveland Cavaliers and head of Rocket Mortgage, can't stand each other. So much so that we heard leaked audio of a call that Mat Ishbia gave to, I want to say it was one of his top brokers, that said, fuck those cocksuckers, right? Meaning Rocket Mortgage. We're going to continue to fuck those cocksuckers, right? And beat them. We're number one and all this, like, wow, dude, over mortgages? Which when you realize, but that's, this guy actually makes billions and billions of dollars. Henry, it's so crazy that like petty little like squabbles among billionaires are carrying over into the NBA. Tell us more about the story because I'm so fascinated.
So it's all happening right now because weirdly, this is one of those things where multiple journalists are working on the same story and they all journalists care. The world doesn't care that one would come out an hour before the other one or whatever.
Does that happen by accident, by the way? Like, what are the chances that Pablo was going to talk to Hunter Brook Media and Baxter Holmes was also working on this at the same time?
So in my experience, what happens is, somebody's working on it somewhere, doesn't know the other one's working on it. And then like one of the sources that you call from is, I also got a call from this guy, right? And then everyone gets all tense and the newsroom is a flame with like, we were working on this thing, but they're working on this thing. And the theory is that if the one comes out first and the other one's like a day later, then everybody just gets fired or something. But like, I'm here to tell you from looking at the data, like no readers care. And just the best story is much more important than the timing of the story.
Correct.
But look, I'm going to totally speculate here that the Baxter story was the one that was rushed out to meet the timing of the other one. 2 reasons I would say that. One is Baxter's an absolutely dogged genius of a reporter.
So good.
And to be totally honest, his story wasn't as good, which tells me it wasn't the version that he wanted. I haven't talked to him. I don't know this, but like ordinarily you're going to lose if you're going up against Baxter. It's happened a million times. Secondly, the other one. Okay, so the other one is by a very interesting group of people.
Sure is.
Called Hunter Brook Media. The key writers were Matt Tremini and Sam Koppelman. There are others as well.
Sam Koppelman, I should point out, son of Brian Koppelman. Those of you who know Brian Koppelman, co-creator of Showdown of Billions, Rounders. Like, so just so you draw a little context as to, who
a Knicks fan and a publicatory friend.
Correct. all of so you see where we're okay. Just putting it out there.
But so the reason that I think they picked the schedule is because they had a much fancier presentation, and it takes a week or more to publish just what was on Hunter Brook Media. But then they also made a Pablo Torre Finds Out podcast, which was also heavily produced. Both of those things were probably in the works for a month. So it looks to me like they were, and then they had, frankly, the sexier, that thing that you quoted. Should we say it again? The quote here is, we fucking took those cocksuckers down, fuck them, and we're going to keep fucking sticking it to them forever. Fuck those guys. We're number one. Like they got that, and Baxter didn't have that. So we know who won that one. The actual audio of him actually saying that.
I was like, wow, Ishbia just fired the fuck up over this. Crazy.
So there's so much we could talk about here, and they do a great job. I would just listen to the Pablo podcast. I think that's like where you could just do that. You'll be pleased you did if you haven't already. I have a few thoughts here. One is like, okay, a guy I know who went to business school explained that like with every business deal you can look at like it ultimately benefits whom. You can make a little diagram, right? The mortgage industry went bad in a way that in 2008, which affected the public, right? It was bad for people with mortgages, by and large. I guess some people got out of paying their mortgages, but yeah, regular folks who seldom make it into NBA stories. But here we are, just for a second. So then, if you remember, there are all these reforms. This is where
Dodd-Frank, all that. Yep.
Dodd-Frank, and then this new Consumer Protection Bureau comes in, and like the idea is that banks have a lot of new rules about lending. And the upside of that was banks were like, maybe we won't do that.
We're out of here.
So then a little bit of a loophole. I'm not a government expert, but it seems to me it was a bit of a loophole that like those rules didn't apply to Mat Ishbia and Dan Gilbert. What?
Mortgage companies, whom, by the way, said, okay, we will lend money for mortgages with lines of credit we have from the same banks who no longer want to do mortgages.
Right.
Just that out there. Okay.
So obviously, well, no, I'm not going to, let's not go with that. Okay. So then they were, a new space was opened where basically like dudes like Ishbia can take a lot of market share from giant banks. Obviously, you want to get into that business if you can. And this is where the biggest purchase every American makes, and you're writing checks for 30 years. There's money in this pipeline.
Lots of money in mortgages.
And then listen to the podcast. But like basically, it's been a battle over these independent mortgage brokers who are purportedly getting you, Jarod, the home purchaser, the best possible deal for you. But in fact, it seems, I hope you're sitting down, but it seems they don't always do that. They're not always actually looking out for you.
What are you saying, Henry? What are they? Who are they looking out for? They're not looking out for me. Wait. A mortgage broker tells me, Jarod, I want to find you the best mortgage deal out there. So he's not finding me they're not finding me the best mortgage deal out there.
It appears that at times, and perhaps even systematically, instead of taking money from the bank and giving it to you, they're taking money from you and giving it to Mat Ishbia. That's pretty much what's happening.
Sounds like a conspiracy, Henry. That's what it sounds like to me.
It does sound like a conspiracy. There's a lot of, but it does sometimes seem like these billionaires we talk about so much on this show have excessive money, right? Like
they do.
In this case, you can kind of trace that the excess comes from you could be paying. I think you're a renter, so I'm using you. It's not right.
It's fine, but I've been a mortgage holder, so I get it.
Yeah, you know the deal. Like, maybe you could have gotten a 2.9% 15-year mortgage, but instead you end up with a 4.5 30-year mortgage. Suddenly, Mat Ishbia has a lot more dough, right? And this is what it looks like. The numbers are huge on those, multiplied by how many mortgage holders they have. And this voicemail that we were talking about with the cocksuckers and all that, like that's about becoming the number one. Like they've originated the most mortgages of any company. So
Henry, this is a problem. This is a big fucking problem. So listening to the Pablo podcast, how this works. So, and I've used a mortgage broker before. So here's how mortgage brokers work, people. Again, they, in theory, go out on your behalf to scour all of their resources to find you the best deal based on your creditworthiness, all the factors you have to meet. So in theory, right, you would assume they're shopping you out to however many. But if 99% of a broker's business, and that was the case of one particular broker's, go to UWM, which is Mat Ishbia's business, what are the chances that 99 out of 100 times Mat Ishbia's company was the right company for 99 people?
Nowadays you can shop for mortgages a lot of ways. A broker's one way to comparison shop for a mortgage. Like it used to be that you would like go, you'd go to your bank, right? And they'd say, oh, I can get you a 4.9 or whatever.
Right.
But, in addition to going to a broker, you can go on various websites and there's some pretty sophisticated ones, and you can like sift through the fees. And I know it's confusing, but like you can roll up your sleeves and figure out, like you can see in some of these cases that like this wasn't a good deal. Right?
And that's the deal, Henry. That's what they do. Most people get obfuscated by the fees. It's like, most people look at the big sticker, 3.1, 4.9, whatever. Oh, I got a good
monthly
rate.
Payment, or
great. Yeah, but why do I have to pay? I'm gonna throw a number out here. $5,000 in closing costs for this Mat Ishbia mortgage, but only $3,000 in closing costs for this other one. And this is, you do that times $1 billion. Well, this is how you get, lots of money.
And so you end up, so now first, like my first cut is like, hey, sorry, Suns fans, you guys had like this
douchebag owner.
Total douchebag before, and now it's like, and now I'll like look at Ishbia physically right now compared to when he bought the team. Like, dude's been partying. Like, he's put on some weight. He's a little bleary-eyed. Like, you can hear it in the voicemail. Like, like this is not some cutting-edge genius. He's a very, very aggressive, competitive guy. Great, fine, whatever. He's just like a show billions, right? But he's not here to save Phoenix. Like, he's a Michigan guy. But then on top of that, like, I think, okay, at the end of the Hunter Brooks story, we learn last year UWM, Ishbia's company, reported a net loss of $70 million amid an interest rate driven decline in the mortgage market. Nevertheless, the Ishbias received a dividend of more than $600 million. UWM also paid the Ishbias an additional $21 million for such services and renting the family's private jet for company travel and for renting the family's land for the company's headquarters in Pontiac, among other expenses. The family received a similar amount of money from the company, including the $600 million dividend in 2022. That year, UWM missed its $5.36 billion net revenue projection from its SPAC marketing by more than $2.9 billion. So remember our little diagram of who does it benefit, right? Like, so this has been presented as a story of these, like, Gilbert's Rocket Mortgage and United Wholesale Mortgage as like the two rivals. And in that model, Ishbia represents UWM. But there's another layer now, right? Which is like, no, UWM will one day die because all things do.
Of course.
But Ishbia will be fine.
Correct.
Because look at how he's been picking the meat off the bones of UWM, right? And when he makes that money his own outside the company, he makes it, in some cases, in the NBA. This is what we do. We are now looking at this guy who systematically, it appears, like took money from Jarod, even though you didn't want to give him your money.
Yeah.
And then he took it out of UWM into, so now we got, if you want to root for Kevin Durant, we were talking about earlier, you got to kind of cheer along with this hoser who like also is the same guy who like wouldn't give the out of bounds ball back to Jokic. Like, just give him the damn ball. Like, and there's a whole Isaiah Thomas part of this too. Oh my God.
So the independent, right? So most companies, if people know a little inside sort of baseball for you or basketball, as this case may be, company for profit and public companies have to have independent boards, right? Then their job is to monitor and pay attention to what's going on and make sure nothing nefarious is happening. Well, but if the board is made up of people that are friends of yours that are getting money from you on the back end, how impartial are they? Isaiah Thomas is one such board member who gets a six-figure salary.
He was.
He's not anymore.
Not anymore, yeah.
He was getting a six-figure salary on top of company stock, right?
Yeah.
Whose son also just happens to work for the Phoenix Suns. So I wonder how that happened. Who, as we learned, and we knew this early, because remember, I think you had said this to me. You're like, oh, Isaiah Thomas has been hanging around Mat Ishbia a lot. Wonder what's going on there. Who is a loud voice inside the Phoenix Suns organization. I mean, I might call him a shadow.
Chris Paul gets traded. He's like, Matt and Isaiah.
Said it multiple times. He was very clear to point. I was like, so what does James Jones do with this organization? What's his job? Nothing.
Listen.
Right. Pretty much. Whatever Matt and Isaiah say, this is what we're doing. But this is the reality, folks. This is, and look, the Suns are just one example. This is what your favorite team, this is what you deal with. And it's, Henry, you always say, look, if you want to spend 2 hours after your job and you just want to enjoy your basketball, you want to think about this. Just watch your basketball, enjoy it, whatever. But if you're going to be in this is what you got to root for, right? You got to root for these dudes who are not great, right? Not great at all.
Just kind of I want a scale that's like jerk at one end and then like villain at the other. And we're like, there's all the words, like there's somewhere your dicky kind of in the middle, right? There's like assholes, like, but we're getting up there, we're getting up there on that scale, I don't know. What word do you think is best for Mat Ishbia, just from what you know?
He's probably somewhere in the middle, heading towards that villain side. He's getting. So if it's half and villains on the right, he's tipped past the 50 mark, and he's already on the villain side. And
yeah,
because
he's at least a dick.
Oh, without question. Because to your point, if he's taking money out of the company for, again, like paying himself, when you have land that your company that you and your family own, but they have to pay you because you guys, like, you're stealing from your own company multiple times over is what they're doing.
Well, and it's every show that has billionaires in it like makes clear what they show us every day, which is like they're mostly competitive with each other, right? Like Donald Trump is obsessed with his Forbes ranking, right? Like he's not sweating paying his bills, right? This
clearly,
a lot of us work hard to make money to like go on a vacation or something, right? This is not that case, right? The joy comes from the comparison, right? So what that means is if you extract a reasonable amount of money from your company, then you are falling behind because there's always someone who will extract more, and they're going to have a nicer yacht and a nicer helicopter when you go to, where would they go? You know, these places, they go to like the Art Basel or whatever, right? Like,
Art Basel, or they go to the French Riviera, Côte d'Azur. All the fancy places.
So this is where this is where you win in that world, right? And like in that world, like you're a loser if you're good at your business, right? If you're prioritizing your business more than yourself, then someone else is moving ahead of you. So it's like it's almost systematically just nudges you into like who's the most daringly selfish person is the winner, right? That's like this guy. Yeah.
Do you know who, when it comes to something like mortgages, who the loser is in the collateral damage? Us, regular people, because to Henry's point, they don't care. His goal is I have to be number one or wherever, one spot higher on the Forbes ranking list. How do I do that? Extract more money. What does that mean? Probably my company collapses and I screwed people out of their homes. But what do I care?
It just makes houses more expensive, right? Like we like have an affordable housing crisis. And like, my wife works for Habitat for Humanity. We can talk about this for a while, but like makes houses more expensive. It just does.
But what do billionaires care about houses being more expensive? Doesn't bother them. Right?
It never comes up in billions.
Never comes up ever. You ever watch Billions where they say, "Oh, that house is that price of the house is never the issue." That's never the concern.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Dan and Matt hate each other, and so I think when Dan was when Matt was buying the team, Dan was the one owner who said hell no and blocked them, like all these little petty grievances because Matt's higher than Dan on certain lists, and his company's number one in mortgages, right? All these little fucking petty squabbles.
But Dan's richer, right? So I think it's like, I mean, these guys are such predictable macho dorks. Like, I honestly wonder if we just put it out there, maybe we can start it right now. Like, they should wrestle each other.
Like, Ishbia would 100% sign up for that shit.
They would, but like this is like Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg.
Oh, yeah,
right? I just think like neither one of them has the like testosterone posture to be like that's stupid. Like they both have to be like, "Oh, wax ya," like it's
I will say before we move on to our next billionaire, that type of number one business win all whatever. Initially, if you're a Phoenix Suns fan or a Phoenix Mercury fan, which he also owns, that may look good to you because he got Kevin Durant. He got Bradley Beal. He got us the All-Star game in 20 whatever year. Like all these exciting, we have a new facility, all these cool things that look initially upfront to you very exciting. But Henry's point about short-term, long-term. But he gutted everything like the company long-term for the short-term that may or may not work. Here's the thing. Championship odds for the Suns, not high. I don't know what the Mercury situation is. Long-term, guess what? When you got to rebuild, you're fucked. You want to know why? You got no draft picks for the next 10 years. But what does he care? Because he already extracted whatever he wanted out of it. And so this is, when you're rooting for these people, welcome. This is what you got.
You should at least root for medium term, I think. Right. Long term's kind of hard. But all in for this year, which is kind of what the Suns did. Like,
they're fucked. I mean, it's not looking great. I'll put it that way.
Great.
All right. So another billionaire situation. This one's a little more seedy. Charlotte Hornets. Well, first we should say that Steve Clifford announced he'll be stepping down as head coach.
How does that meeting go? Like, hey, buddy, you're fired, but you need to tell him. Tell him what was your idea.
Well, speaking of that,
it'd be better if you told him. Really? Okay. I hate coaching in the NBA. Yeah, it's terrible.
Henry and Henry knows where my partner Kara works. I won't say, but she read me an email from someone who's like basically said to the effect of, "My portfolio has been shifted, and I will now be." It is one of those clear, like, well, you clearly didn't want to do this, but you have to now go up in front of everybody and say, "Here's the deal." Well, this is kind of the Steve Clifford thing. He announced he'll be stepping down. He might say out of some advisor role, whatever. It's fine. But the Hornets, man, this is a franchise used to be run by the aforementioned Michael Jordan, not well, and now run by someone who might be even more shadier than Dan Gilbert or Mat Ishbia.
Wait, before we get into this, and I'm excited in this, like, do you know? I know Jeff Peterson is their new like VP who comes from the Nets. Do you know anything? Do you know him? Do you know anything about him?
I don't know him. I mean, I've heard good things that he is like a smart dude, and seems to have good long term vision. But you only have the job for a couple of years, so your vision may not be that long term.
Vision get real short.
Well, it's because these billionaire owners have such trigger fingers, right? So you can come in and pitch them with, look, dude, give me the 5-year run map, and then in year 2, they might just fucking on a whim be like, get out of here, I'm pissed, and do whatever.
So I have like a ongoing complaint about like how media works now, where like everybody kind of needs to butter up the power brokers, and so that means when they do a bad job, we never really get that story, right?
Correct.
Like, like the Bus family's done a pretty terrible job, but they're routinely just lionized as like.
There was one article who might have been on TrueHoop back in the day who really kind of went in like talking about the Lakers' poor athletic trainers. Like somebody, it might have been you guys.
It might have been,
But like, it was one story I saw. One that was like we went in on them.
This is the real example of like exactly what we're talking about, taking the money out of UWM. Like the Bus family doesn't really have significant investments outside of the Lakers, and so like they, once it became 6 owners instead of 1, like they've been taking money out. They're the first team. They're in some ways the richest team, the biggest revenue team, but also the poorest team in that like we got the lockout and they fired the video coordinator right away because the Bus kids need that money. They need the video coordinator's money, right? Like
no. The video coordinator who makes like $20,000 a year,
they need that.
Be evicted from his apartment. They need it.
They're taking that. Yeah. Like so. Anyway, like ideally, I think your NBA investors have other sources of revenue so they can weather the downturns, right?
Yes, the Bus family are, poor by NBA standards.
Okay, but so let's just take a second though on this Charlotte thing and just look back. Like we had a lot of articles about how Michael Jordan was going to bring his wisdom and winning prowess to the league, and like what a fucking joke that was, right? Like, and we need to just take a second on this. Like, I went there. We had some ESPN thing in looks like 2007. I went down to Charlotte and interviewed Bob Johnson, who was then the majority owner, first Black majority owner in North American pro sports, right? And we sat there in the stands and I asked him a bunch of questions, and he was very gracious in answering all of them. One of them I asked him was like, hey, like, I'm going to summarize it. Michael Jordan hired Buzz Peterson was his name, and Rod Higgins. These are old friends of Michael. You can find Michael talking about Buzz from high school.
Yes, those are his old friends.
And I think Rod... Did he play? I think maybe he.
Buzz he played with the Carolina. Rod was from high school. I'm pretty sure.
Rod's from high school. Is that how it went? Okay, so those are the key. There are others too. There were other people kind of in and out of the. Then they were called the Bobcats because Bob Johnson on the team. What? Like you guys stop being such egomaniacs all the time. Like the Bobcat is not a symbol of North Carolina. I looked it up. Okay, so So this is what's happening. I asked Bob Johnson about this, he's just like, Bob Johnson runs a bunch of businesses and none of them have this like friend group at the top that seems to be performing badly. Right. Yeah. And he said, I have overwhelming confidence in Michael to make the best decisions for the Bobcats. He's the second largest owner of the franchise. He's the world's greatest guy ever to play basketball. And he's probably the most competitive guy I have ever met. And he's a friend whom I trust. When he makes decisions about who to hire, about who to put in a position, I'm assuming he makes it based on his fundamental belief that this is the best talent to work in the organization and the best talent to work with me. I won't second guess that. There's nothing wrong with hiring somebody or somebody who's a friend if they can deliver on what you assign them to do. A lot of that is not only just doing what you're supposed to do, but also fitting in the culture that I need to maximize the business results. Like, okay, sounds great, right? But the fact is, it completely didn't happen, right? Michael Jordan made strategic investments in alcohol and gambling brands, but they've been bottom 5 over this whole time in wins and losses. The last time they won a playoff series was in 2002 when they were coached by Paul Silas, who, may he rest in peace, has been dead for years. Like, MJ took over in 2010. So they had this just terrible 14 years. Like, a very cruel thing you could do is just go through their draft picks and transactions. And like, it's, you want a team that wins more than half of its transactions, right? Because there's 2 parts to a transaction. Like, you should be on the winning end at least half the time, right?
Correct.
It's hard to find a single transaction they're on the winning end of. Like the Adam Morrison pick, I remember being just like, one of David Thorpe's first articles for ESPN was about how Adam Morrison was the worst player in the NBA. And they picked him fourth.
Yeah.
So to me, like, we have had this like wildly terrible performance from this office, from the top office, right? From the person who hires and fires the GMs and the coaches, right? Like, that's where we've been particularly weak forever, right? You could say they've been unlucky with injuries, and I would say, have they been good at preventing injuries?
Right.
Yeah. So that's all going on. Okay, now let's just take a second and look at what's happening now, right? So the newcomers are Gabe Plotkin and Rick Schnall. Tom Haberstroh moonlighted here at TrueHoop for a little while and wrote a story about this, like how the GameStop, like meme stock controversy affected the NBA. You should definitely go read that up. It's called GameStop, a very NBA billionaire battle. Google it or whatever. But I tell you that Gabe Plotkin was the guy, right? Like when all those Robinhood investors were teaming up on was it a Reddit board where they were gathering?
I think so, on Reddit. Yep.
And they were like, we're going to stick it to this guy who shorted GameStop, right? That guy's name was Gabe Plotkin. He's the guy. He's the chief billionaire who invests in the Hornets, formerly Bobcats now. But if you look at how that whole story played out, some interesting billionaires threw in with the GameStop, with the Robinhood investors, right? Those people's names are Mark Cuban and Chamath Palihapitiya, who's one of the Warriors investors, and the guy who was at that time Mark Cuban's GM, Geraldo Vulgaris. They were all like all over social media with like, this is a revolutionary, exciting new time, and like the crowd is smarter than the people, insiders, and blah blah blah, and the Robinhood. But meanwhile, the Robinhood app was actually making money off the investors in a sneaky way by selling deal flow. That's a boring thing, but the point is, it's kind of like a mortgage conversation. They're taking money from the regular folks and giving it to them. And Mark Cuban was bragging about hedging these bets, right? He's like, these are super risky investments, right? Something a billionaire can afford to do because he's hedged it, but something that for regular folks with your mortgage money that you would like to be giving to Mat Ishbia, like, this is a little bit risky, right?
Can't be hedging that mortgage payment, people. That is not a good idea.
Like, we're familiar with a person that goes to the casino with like their rent money. Jesus. And it's like, oh man, this is like, now you can do that on your phone from home, right? And now there's like a Reddit community which is gonna like love you up for taking these risks, right? And like, this to me is the gamification of our economy, right? Which is good for billionaires who can afford to keep playing when they lose, right? And it's bad for regular folks who get wiped out when they lose. It's not that gambling is the worst thing ever. It's that gambling with the rent money is a little different.
Correct.
Right? And this is where, and then, there was a period where Mark Cuban and Geraldo Vulgaris and Chamath Palihapitiya declared victory over unseen person who really was Gabe Plotkin, right? And Gabe Plotkin did take a big haircut, right? But he got bailed out. He goes deep with Stephen A. Cohen, who he used to work with, and Ken Griffin from Citadel, who was the main person who was making money off the Robinhood transactions, right? And like, so Gabe Plotkin got bailed out. He's like this wonder child of the industry, and everyone has high expectations. He's going to do great things. And guess what? He's fine. Like, guess what? He bought Michael Jordan out. And maybe we don't know, but Michael Jordan invested with Gabe. This we know.
Yeah, we do know that.
What we don't know is when Gabe got wiped out, it's conceivable that Michael Jordan got a haircut.
And that is why he doesn't sell the Charlotte Hornets. Yes.
And now look what happened. Pretty good for Gabe, isn't it? Yeah. Ken Griffin would be less likely to bail Michael Jordan out than Gabe Plotkin. I don't know. All that speculation. I don't know what actually happened there, but the point is, Gabe Plotkin, the big loser here, who the Robinhood guys were like, no, like Ken Griffin was the big winner, right? Like,
it is. I mean, for people to really understand like the amount of money we're talking about here, and we're talking about winners and losers. Like, again, you lose your rent or your mortgage money in Vegas, that is homeless. We're talking like you got problems, okay? Like severe problems. These people hedge and make bets that like fucking Jeff Bezos loses half his fortune to his wife in a divorce settlement, and the next day buys a $500 million yacht. Why? Because he can. Right. It
I mean,
doesn't
yeah,
even
it's
matter.
around like it's around $70K, right? Is your like amount of money, depending where you live, where you can like afford to have insurance and somewhere to live, most likely, right? Maybe this bigger number now with inflation. I don't know, but those are the dollars that matter, right? Like those are the dollars that get you to happiness, right? In the research from Harvard.
Yep.
So like if you're in under the 70K, then like, ooh, gambling is really painful. If you're above that, then you're off with Chamath and you're doing your funny meme stocks or whatever. And
no problem.
And frankly, most of those people now, that whole little Mark Cuban Chamath little posse, like they made a killing in crypto.
Sure did.
Which was also the gamification of our economy, also exploiting regular folks, right?
People, this is, these are the people who run teams that you and I root for and play, and they manage the careers of players. And then we have to Henry's point as he started. Oh man, I want to root for Luka, and I gotta cheer on this dude too.
Yeah,
like, not great.
Now Cubans handing the baton to an actual casino.
Literally to an actual what's the family name? The family's name, Henry, that owns it. Yeah, the Adelsons.
Miriam.
That's where their money comes from. They own casinos, and folks, like this idea, like casinos keep getting built. It's not like they're destroying them, and they just keep. The house always wins for a reason. Like, it's a rigged game. It's a rigged game. It just is.
I'm not some. I'm like the point of this is not, that the NBA should have like some social enlightenment. Like I don't expect that. I just think that it's this kind of thing where like, I think we all agree games should have some kind of rules, right? Like basketball could be tackle, but it's not tackle. We have a referee who stands there and says you can't tackle that guy, right? Like I think same with this kind of stuff, right? There should just be some kind of basic concept of like this, not that rules is allowed. Like you shouldn't go to an independent mortgage broker, have them make a little video, which you can hear on Pablo's podcast, saying about how they're going to find you the best deal, and then have them actually take something from someone to steer you to a non. Like that's just shoddy.
Did you see after the Hunterbrook piece, 2 of the videos got taken down? They're not up on their social media feeds or up on there. And the woman was a North Carolina independent mortgage broker who was next to Dan Gilbert at the New York Stock Exchange.
Not Dan Gilbert, to Ishbia, next to Ishbia.
Sorry, Ishbia. Ringing the. I'm like, well, does she work for UNW or does she? Anyway,
and this is the I've spent some time in like other countries, right, with very poor regulation and oversight, and I'm not a fan of regulation as like it's not like fun,
no,
but like when the container says the ingredients, like it should be those ingredients, or when the gas pump says a gallon, it should be a gallon, right? Like we kind of count on some of this, or when the police pull you over, they shouldn't take $10 to let you go, right? Like when these things are eroded, like it gets hard to do anything that matters.
Correct.
Right? It's hard because you don't believe in other people doing their part and blah, blah, blah. So like, to me, like, I think that the NBA kind of treads in this space of like, we're feeling it right now. Like, referees make honest mistakes sometimes.
Sure do.
And it's very hard to say that's an honest guy. A referee wouldn't do that because we know examples.
We caught one, right? Like, I mean,
slimiest guy. Like,
it's not good. No, and this is how it's all connected. No, that's exactly right. But folks, again, things that you need to keep your eyes on and just be aware, be mindful. These are the sports, and this is, by the way, it's not just unique to the NBA. This is happening across sports, all across the world, everywhere. Do a little digging into your favorite Premier League team's owner. That Citigroup that owns Man.
Don't.
that owns Man City.
Yeah.
Great.
No.
All right.
At least the Trailblazers are pure and chaste. That's what we know, for real.
By the way, what is Jody selling that fucking team, for crying out loud?
I don't know, man.
She's not. She's waiting on the expansion money. Then she's going to sell the team when she gets paid.
Yeah.
All right. A little tradition we do here on TrueHoop, which is we do the top 5 every week, but we're not doing top 5 this week. This week we're doing the most disappointing 5. And I have to tell you guys, in this show document, Henry's like, "Ooh, this is fun." He was so excited to talk about the 5
We're going to
teams.
get, like, people will complain about this. This is like not this is not fun for a sports fan.
It's great. It's great. The most disappointing 5 teams. All right. I will start with my number 5 team, the Detroit Pistons. And here's why they're here. Not because I thought they were going to be some playoff team. I just thought I'd see a little bit more fight out of them and just some improvement from Cunningham, Jalen Duren, from Jaden Ivey. And in Jaden Ivey's case, I saw regression. They paid Monty Williams $70 million to do what exactly? Complain about the Knicks all day? Which is basically what he does. I don't know. Like, not good.
So much money for a coach.
So much money. So disappointed in Detroit.
Yeah, you might as well just be working on your cheap next Mark Dagno scenario, right?
Like, sure should.
Yeah. My number 5 team is the Raptors. Just because, like, I remember after Kawhi left, it was like, oh, they were going to resurrect with this, like, super exciting, high potential team. And now, like, if, the players who've left, I think it's fair to say that OG, Pascal, Fred VanVleet, and Kyle are all in better places now.
Sure are.
Right? They're all just going to win more games.
They're going to the playoffs.
Feeling better about life, right? Like, if you're managing Scotty Barnes, like, you don't want to be the team that's, like, with the place that you leave to have more joy and wins.
Yeah. It's funny because that was a team with Masai, 3-4 years ago, we were like, ooh, best GM in the league, blah, blah, blah. And now, wow.
Show you folks. We got a little ahead of ourselves on that one.
I think so. Things change quickly in this league. On my number 4 line, the Sacramento Kings. One of the things that David loves to say is, how do you deal with success? Well, Kings not deal with success so well this season. Everything's down. Their defense, their offense is down. And now Malik Monk is hurt, so that, I can't blame them for that. But after a team that won, was a 3rd seed last year, took the Warriors to 7, I expected them to be like, all right, we're coming back to show out again this year, and really, we're gonna win our first round series. And now they're in the play-in. Who knows what they're gonna do? So disappointed with the Kings.
Yeah, you get a little stuck with the low ceiling kind of thing. Feels like, right?
I think so. Yep.
My number 4 team is the Clippers. I didn't look up their total payroll since the Kawhi trade, but it's just
$1 billion.
It's like first or second every year, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Fair to say. The Warriors have done a great job of spending money, but yeah. So that's in 2019 they got Kawhi and PG, and now they're spent all this money. And as of today, according to like most of the little things you can Google, they're 8th most likely to win the championship this year. Meanwhile, let's just remember how they got Paul George, and like, they traded our pick as MVP, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, a pick that became Jalen Williams, who's extraordinary, so right? Good. You might trade anyone on the Clippers for Jalen Williams right now. Right? Yeah. And they still have 4 more picks or pick swaps to come. And it wouldn't be unusual to think the Clippers will start really kind of declining. Their core is very old. Mm-hmm. Like I think those pick swaps go out to like 2027.
Yeah, it's not great.
So the Thunder might be a dynasty, and they'll still be like this is like, remember the Lakers getting Magic Johnson when they were super good? Like, it might be like that. We're gonna get some. Yeah, that's bad. That's disappointing.
That is it. By the way, the Thunder are a team who, and I don't know what kind of voodoo magic Sam Presti worked over the Thunder ownership, but that's a man that has a long runway and job security. He sold them on long-term vision, and it's the longest of terms. All good. That's what you do. All right, on my 3 line, the Phoenix Suns, if only for the fact that their inability to find consistency. When they play well, they look great. When they don't, they don't.
Yeah. My 3rd is the Lakers. They have pretty big salary, $168 million, and basically no title odds at all, right? Yeah. And so LeBron started the year with maybe 1, maybe 2. Like, can't possibly dream of 3 years left playing at any kind of level where he might be a key player on a good team, and burned 1. And I'm guessing that now we're going to have rumors that he wants out. I'm guessing that
probably.
I don't know when we had a little whisper of it this year, but if he wants to win a championship, I don't think it can be here.
But here's the great thing. The beauty of the in-season tournament being in the early part of the year, that's when LeBron's his freshest. Guess what? Lakers already won a championship this year. In-season, inaugural.
Do you really believe that?
You're good. Guess what? The first one ever. You get to hang your banner, my friends. Like, you won. Yeah. My number 2 team.
Guys, you got yours. Don't bite that metal. It's not real gold. Yeah.
And Rick, come on, we can't be delegitimizing the in-season tournament, Henry.
It's great. It's no championship. Yeah.
Well, we are world football fans, and we love the fact that our teams can play for multiple trophies every year. All right.
Yes.
So let's say won 1 trophy this year. All right. My number 2 line, the Warriors, for similar reasons to the Lakers, in that they're old. Steph's still pretty good, and Draymond is good when he's not doing bad things like punching teammates and or joking out opponents and or hitting opponents. But I just don't see where they go from here. The kids have gotten better, but I think to the point now where they're going to be good, which next year I think is going to be really good. Steph and Draymond are not going to be at the stage where they're going to be good enough to then make them the recipe for success that wins the championship. So just a bummer.
Yeah, this disappointing question to me really quickly comes down to expectations, right? And with their, I think, do they have the highest salary of all time?
They sure do.
The Warriors, yeah. So that speaks of expectations, right? And they're absolutely not going to win a championship this year. So biggest salary of all time, no chance of a championship. That's disappointing.
I think so. All right, who's on your 2 line?
That was my 2.
Oh, your 2 was the Warriors. Okay.
Yeah.
1 for me.
Can I go out of order? What happened there?
1 for me. You mentioned them. Lakers. Similar reasons as old, expensive, and you're fans of this podcast. You know David is not high on Darvin Ham. I just think they have. And we talked about the buses and their ownership issues. This is just, it's funny. They had that brief respite when they got LeBron. It was like, ooh, kind of like lipstick on the pig, right, Henry? But do you remember the 5 years before that when they were paying Kobe $1 jillion and they were terrible? That's kind of what I think this team is just going to be for a little while now.
Those Kobe years were like the biggest decline. They went, it's just a record-setting decline. That's also when there were tons of articles about how smart Jeannie Buss was. And I was like, how can we possibly have this?
How can that be?
How can those things go together? My number 1 team is the Suns because we just talked about Mat Ishbia for so long.
Mm-hmm.
But I have like recency bias. But also I do think, I really think this summer there will also be big trades, and some team will get an older superstar.
Mm-hmm.
Happens, with
every
the Bucks with Lillard, the Suns with Bradley Beal. And when these deals happen, it's a stone cold lock that the early reporting will be from the reporter who got the story from the person who runs the team that got the star.
Yep.
And they will say that this is earth shattering. It changes everything. And it isn't. It almost never is. Like the Nets getting all those Celtic stars, whatever. Like once in a blue moon, there's a trade that leads to a championship, but it's not common at all. And to me, it was the Suns last summer. Everyone just lost their mind. And they're literally, I looked it up today, depending where you look, they're 0.4 to 1.0% likely to win the championship this year. Like,
not great.
Not great.
No, and we talked about Ishbia, right? That's what a super aggressive businessman who wants to fuck you cocksuckers, that's what he's going to do. Cool. But we'll see how that works in the long term. And long term, not looking great. Henry, this was a super fun episode.
We went pretty long, Jarod.
We did. We went over an hour. Listen, folks, you've been getting some
podcasting.
Yeah. You've been getting some 45-minute episodes from me and David. Look, the past couple of weeks, you got an hour and 18 today. Like, come on.
Hey.
Like, when you average it all out, you're getting your money's worth here. Come on.
I listen to most of my podcasts walking the dog. This would be like 2 or 3 dog walks.
Yeah, it's a big one. Yeah,
the dog would be thankful.
This is a Ginger, as you can. She's behind me now. If we go on a long walk, this is this podcast. Yeah, which we might do.
Do you guys know that Jarod has a very, very, very cute dog that's kind of big on Instagram and was in the New York Post?
She was on the New York Post video feed because I was doing a hit for He Got Gabe with Dexter. Yeah, she made her New York Post debut. Listen, she's a wonderful dog. Can you see her in the background there, Henry?
No, I can't see her. Oh, she's just like a model. She literally she can make some money. What would she be selling? I guess
I mean, she's selling scarves. She's selling hats. She's got it all. She's also selling dog food if you're into that kind of thing. I mean, I don't know. Maybe you want to buy some for your dog. She's a very popular dog on Instagram. Ginger the Staffy. Everybody follow her on Instagram. That's where she is.
Ginger the Staffy, like those words.
Yeah, Ginger underscore the Staffy. STAFFY. Yeah.
FFY.
Yeah, little fun, little play on word, little funny thing there. Yeah.
Wouldn't it be fun if she just became like a massive star and just and you were had autograph seekers outside?
Because then she would fund our retirement. Yeah, that would be fantastic. We'd love it.
Let's do it.
Put her to work. We ask her every day, how are you going to fund this life that we live? And she often has no response. Nothing to say.
She's taking a nap right now.
Yeah, right. That's her response. Nap. That's how often. All right, guys. We'll see you next week. Take care.
Thank you.